Alrighty, we are back. Your favorite podcast show of the week. This is Location Weekly. It's episode number 471, and we're recording live on Tuesday, June the 30th. It's the last day of the month, people. And for the Canadians who are listening and watching, tomorrow's Canada Day. It's a holiday here. So happy Canada Day. And for the American people who are out there, you have your July 4th this week as well. So lots of holidays, lots of celebrations, socially distanced and all that. So enjoy, be happy. How are you, Brianna?
I'm pretty good, hanging in there. Just enjoying family time, hot, humid Atlanta. We're actually escaping to the beach next week, so I am looking forward to just, some sun and sand and hopefully not a lot of people. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, just taking it all in. There's a lot of stuff going on in the industry, right?
there is a lot of stuff going on in the industry. We have a few good stories this week, but yeah, lots of changes are coming. I think we're gonna kind of let that settle, get through the holidays. We'll come back next week and talk more about some of the bigger picture issues in our industry. But we do have a good show for you this week, including a return of our Members at Home guest series. So I'll let Aubriana kick us off.
All right. Well, this story comes from Xmode, and if you're not familiar with Xmode, they are a location intelligence provider. I've known about Xmode for a while. They started off with drunk mode, which kind of helped you find your friends and let people know that you're okay whenever you maybe are out and having a good time. And that has transitioned into X mode now. And so they have a location SDK, and they work with, several different industries, but mostly marketing and advertising. And they've now launched a consent API for all of their partner apps. So basically, this is a tool that will ensure that, over 400 apps that are on the X mode location data panel can make sure that they manage consent properly. So basically, it'll help them follow all the legislation and privacy, laws that are in place and guidelines that are in place right now. So they make sure that the data is collected, anonymized, and shared, in the right way. Basically, what happens is developers will have options to either use Xmode's pre-made consent dialog, or they can create their own and customize it how they see fit. So obviously this is to comply with things like GDPR and CCPA and all of that legislation that, this industry has been gearing up for and, making changes with over the past couple of years. And then obviously collect and share the data ethically and legally. I think this is great. We've seen a few companies doing consent management recently, and obviously, we're having huge pushes in the industry as a whole for better privacy, more clearly stated guide, understanding like what we're opting in as consumers for, and how our data is going to be used. I think we've seen some companies that get it right. I think Xmo does a great job at making sure that they are they're going above and beyond with a lot of the way that they engage with clients and making sure that the data cannot be used in ways that would be questionable, including things like making sure that they're not, companies are not using their data to target specific groups of people or, those maybe who have certain medical, needs or are using it for credit or employment or things of that nature. So I think they do a really good job of making sure that their data is used really ethically, like above and beyond what a lot of legislation would dictate. I think that the future for them is probably brighter than for some of these types of players. And, I know we're going to address this more next week in a lot of detail, but with certain changes and technology that, Apple's rolling out and everything changing, it will be interesting to see how companies like Xmode navigate this. and how does this impact their business, like their main business? Are they going to be able to shift, and are they going to be able to sort of manage these changing tides, or will they sink? And I think X Mode probably is above and beyond prepared for this, and I think they will adjust as they have over the last several years. So I think consent is a great thing to be focused on, where we've seen some other companies similar to theirs that provide data, that we know are providing data to maybe governments and things for maybe immigration policy or covering protests and things of that nature, that can be questionable in practice.
Yeah, I think this is a super valuable service that they're putting out there. I think that there's definitely a need to focus on the consent piece. I was talking to a former client of mine yesterday, big retail brand, and there's been some discussion up here in Canada about uh, data that's being collected, location data that's being collected through an app platform, and sort of the press, making a big deal of it, and consumers being upset. And I think at the end of the day, I said to the gentleman I was talking to, I said, like, it's. I don't think anything that these guys were doing is wrong. I don't think it's illegal, and in fact, it's all. If you look at their privacy policies, it's all there. What's not there, and what hasn't been done well by so many brands and so many app providers out there, is that idea of informed, consent and articulation of the value proposition. And I think that's really at the heart of what Exmo's trying to do here with this consent API. It's not just be about opt-in or opt-out, or but be there as a way for consumers to understand along the way, what is the value proposition. Because if you clearly articulate it, people generally buy in, and they're generally, yeah, okay, you need my data to provide me with this service or this thing that I need. I'm okay with that. And so I think that's really the sort of point that they're going after here. And I think the whole industry needs to, sort of get behind that kind of thinking, right? Of, it's not just good enough to say, hey, we're collecting data and it's in our privacy policy and people scroll through and accept. You do need to point out, okay, here's why we need your data. Here's what we're doing with your data. And here's why you want to give us that data, because you're getting this in exchange for it. So what is that value exchange? So yeah, I like it. Good job, Exmo. All right, on to our second story for this week. So Google, kind of staying on this idea of data and privacy and all this other stuff, is announcing, last Wednesday they made an announcement that they're making some broad changes to the default data that they collect around search history and all this kind of stuff. So they say that for new users, they will be designing their products to basically auto-delete your location and your search history. So you don't have to go in there and kind of manually do this. They're going to do it for you, to sort of improve, what they're doing around privacy. And this is coming directly from Sundar, who's the CEO of Google, kind of making this announcement last week. So it applies to search history, which includes web or app, location history, and voice commands collected through Google Assistant or devices like Google Home. So all that data, like normally you can see in your My Activity page, they're basically building it so that it automatically kind of deletes on, a regular frequency. So they say the company rolled out a way to automatically delete. Back in 2019, they rolled out a service to auto delete every 3 months or 18 months. So you could choose that setting. And so they're basically just streamlining that and making it sort of more automatic. So there you go. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think, here's what I think. I think the bottom line is that big corporations, and those that we're talking about, right? That I think that I do feel like there is a genuine concern for privacy, because it will affect their business moving forward. However, I feel like a lot of a lot of it is a front for privacy because they can monopolize industries, right? So I think that I mean, that's great. This should have been done from the beginning. Like, this shouldn't be something that we had to wait so long for, right? Um, I mean, we've seen in the past where, you know, Google's had their hands slapped for doing things or keeping things and using our own personal data for their benefit or for the benefit of advertising and obviously, you know, the almighty dollars. So I mean, for me, it's kind of like with some of the big corporations, it's like too little too late to really feel like, oh, they're doing a great job, like, you know, pat on their back. But I do think that it's the right thing to do. I think we have to move towards allowing consumers to really hold the power of their data and for all of us to be in charge of who we give that to and when, and how we allow them to use it, including search and location history. So whether that's in-app or in search, you know, I think it needs to be something that's across the board. But, you know, like you said, it's all about providing value and providing, you know, an exchange for those things. So how that's going to look in the future, I think is like what we're all excited to figure out and, you know, anxious to see how all of these companies navigate things big and small. But yeah, I mean, I guess like it's not mind blowing that they're making this announcement. I think that they just, you know, a lot of these announcements are like, look at what we're doing for privacy. We love our consumers.
Yeah, and I think everybody's making an announcement. So like you've got to do something. You've got to sort of stay in that news cycle and be part of it. And the reality is you know, like they're for the most part keeping data for the last 18 months, which is the data that is the most valuable. It's the current data that they want to run ad targeting and campaigns against anyway. So, you know, it's not, you know, I think it's a nice way to say they're trying to do something, but at the end of the day, you know, they still have the vast majority of the valuable data that they want, which is the most current data anyways, on what people are doing. So there you go. All right, so that's our first two stories. We do have one more for you, but before we go there, we have a guest. So during this time, we've been doing this special series called Members at Home, where we've been interviewing different LBMA member companies, executives, and people that are part of our community to just kind of see how COVID's impacting their businesses. So earlier this week, I had a chance to sit down with JP Persico. He's the Director of Innovation and Strategy for Bosch USA. So Bosch is the big German multinational company that is in everything from appliances to auto parts to all sorts of different things. And he specifically is responsible for their network of stores, thousands of stores across North America and Latin America around the auto service side of things, which many of which have reopened during this COVID time, especially in the U.S. market. So it was a good conversation. So here he is, JP Persico, Director Innovation and Strategy from Bosch. All right, I'm very excited because we have a great guest on our show this week. If you've been to any of our retail locos in the past years, you may have met JP, but JP Persico, he's the Director of Strategy and Innovation at Bosch USA. JP, welcome to Location Weekly. How are you?
Good, thanks, Asif, for having me. Doing well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so Bosch, tell us a little bit about, you know, the company, your role there, what you do.
Sure. So Bosch is a multinational organization. We are a privately owned company, which is basically run by a foundation, and all of our profits go into a non-profit organization. We have over 400,000 employees worldwide. We are a $80 billion organization, and I'm in the automotive aftermarket division of Bosch, responsible for corporate development in North America and also our workshop repair business as well.
Awesome. And you have like quite an extensive network of these repair centers, right? Like how many in the U.S.?
Correct. We have over 700 of our top tier network, the Bosch Car Service Network in the United States, and all of our concepts in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are over 2,500, which are like from our entry tier to our top tier, basically.
Awesome, awesome. That's a huge network. So what we've been doing for the last number of months as we've been doing these guest interviews, we call this series Members at Home. So we're chatting with different member companies, community of the LBMA and so on, and just getting a sense of how COVID has really impacted business for you. So one thing I love to hear about is, have you guys discovered any new tools, technology, like to make it easier for you to work with each other, other employees and colleagues and so on? Obviously, we heard a lot about Zoom and Slack and different things over the last couple of months, but what are you guys doing for that?
Similar. I mean, we're trying to keep each other up to date. I think it's all about talking to each other more often. Not being able to walk up to a desk makes it a bit more challenging. I think at the end of the day, we're trying to use new technology and have people enabled by using new technology. It's interesting because we have salespeople which usually will visit all these centers, and they now have to make phone calls. And sometimes there's FaceTime in use, because you can imagine an independent business owner doesn't want to download Zoom. If they already have an iPhone, they just like do a FaceTime call. Or in certain cases, what we have seen is like, it's definitely changed how we interact with our customers a lot. It also changed how the interaction is. Before, the interaction was really personable because you could have you maybe brought donuts to that interaction, so everyone could have a donut when you visited your customer, or you just chatted over coffee or over lunch. And now you kind of have to carve out time, and you have to be lucky if the person picks up if you couldn't schedule time. Because before, well, you said, hey, I'm going to be in your area Monday next week, I'll be back, I'll be coming over, and the person you stop by my location, I'm just anyways around, so I will make time for you. And now it's like this phone call where you need to figure out, okay, do you have time? Do you want to chat? It's definitely more challenging than it was before.
Yeah, and are you guys on the video call side of things? Are you standardized on like Zoom or Teams, or it's kind of just whatever?
Skype.
Skype.
We use Skype. Yeah.
All right.
Internally we use Skype. Externally we kind of like whatever people want to use. I mean, you're using Zoom here. It all depends.
Yeah, very good. So one big thing that we're asking a lot of people is like, from a technology, from a service product perspective, like, have you guys found that COVID has created any opportunities to either test products that you had sort of in the pipeline and kind of bring them, to fruition faster into the market, or, just accelerated anything that you've been doing? And then secondarily to that, have you found any ways that Bosch has been able to kind of help the local community or the frontline worker side of things?
Yeah, so from a product perspective, I think it accelerated our current roadmap with digitalization and digital transformation of each of these individual workshops. We already had in an offering one of our portfolio companies who's built a cloud-enabled solution, and it's really all this. So the solution was about is you're not interacting through paper, you're not interacting through like on-site experience, and actually being able remotely accepting additional services done on your car, or even like accepting, for example, your invoice at the end and paying it. Our portfolio company did a fantastic job in rolling out a remote payment solution literally the week COVID happened, and it had nothing to do that we planned this for COVID, because it was already in the roadmap, and the company really was lucky. Well, it wasn't lucky, but it was confidentially at the same time. So that definitely accelerated our growth. And also we have not seen in the adoption of our systems any dip during the time of COVID, because people now see the value even more than they saw before. That said, though, I would say when looking at technology and how we're using technology, we're definitely looking at the customer journey much more in detail. We encourage all of our outlets out there to really use the biggest care possible for their employees. We also, I mean, like everyone, like PPE and things like that, we're putting that as availability. Bosch by itself, what we did for our own associates, so we are not going into the stock of the government or whatever, the supply chain out there. We actually built our own sanitation sets and we have sent those out to the people who usually will go and see customers, so they have enough supply for them, so they don't have to worry, hey, does my Walgreens down the street still have some hand sanitizer or a PPE? I get it from my employer. So that's what we have been doing for our employees especially.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. It's great that you have the capability to produce your own, goods in that sense. Like it's not everybody can do that, right? So that's really powerful to have the ability to do that. Last thing to ask you, just kind of as you think, like looking forward now, obviously some economies are opening faster than others, and certain states, faster than others, and so on. But like, where do you see kind of, let's say, by the end of the summer, like, as we come into sort of September, if you had to predict, like, what's going to be happening with your network of stores, is any big changes that you see on the horizon?
I think we are really highly affected by how many times that someone drives. It's all about car usage.
Yeah.
I think if people feel comfortable enough this summer to take their vacation in the car, because we clearly know that airplane vacations are not really happening. I mean, the airplanes are on limited schedules and there is not enough. Actually, in most cases, they're overbooked because it's not worth to run 3 times the route. They just run once. So I think that people will avoid airplanes and most types of travel. So depending on the amount of miles driven, if people are comfortable in leaving their own border of the state, if they're comfortable in traveling far, I could see us benefiting from that due to the fact that the car needs to be serviced. But on the other hand side, I also would say there is definitely the fear that we all are not going to work. Therefore, we're also not driving, because the United States is a country where most people still drive to work. They don't use public transportation. Therefore, there might be an offset of that. So you hear that I'm doubting my own strategies due to the fact that there's so much ambiguity in the market. We're hoping that first and foremost that this is going down due to the safety of the public and to the welfare of the public, and not due to our business can go up again. This is the good side effect. If everyone is healthy and be able to travel and work again, then our business goes up. So for us, it's really the focus on making sure that that people are safe and well. First and foremost, also when they visit our centers, when they're going to a Bosch car service location, they can expect the highest quality of service, the best care to their car, as well as the cleanest handling of their car. It's all no touch. It's all making sure that people are safe. We even have some locations which offer the pick up and drop off of their vehicles. And this is for us important, first and foremost. And the business will come when everyone actually is healthy, because then people can live their normal life again.
Yeah, amazing. Great. I love what you guys are doing, and I love the approach to supporting your employees and your staff. And it's also, I find it fascinating right now that, there's, every company I've talked to so far over these months, there is while we're all concerned, there's a lot of health issues, there's a lot of people dying. You cannot deny that, but many people I talk to are finding like some kind of silver lining in a way to accelerate their product roadmap or bring things forward, and technology, is kind of driving so much of that. So glad to hear you guys are doing similar, and I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and stay safe and healthy and well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Asif. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks, JP. We really appreciate you taking time to come on our show and share, and fantastic things you guys are doing there. It's always great when you're able to kind of use your own company and your own technology and capability to kind of participate in helping others during this a time like we're facing right now with COVID. So congrats on that, and we'll hope to see you soon. Take care. All right, our final story, I'll throw it back to Aubriana now to talk about an interesting partnership.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So gearing up for the 2020 World Cup in Qatar, NomadiX Media has secured a contract with the World Cup, and what they are doing, or the solution that they will be providing there, are called eye walkers. So I took a look at their website, and there's some video and kind of gives you an overview of what this solution specifically looks like. But eye walkers are these devices that display messages on a screen. They're like a moving billboard, and at the same time, it has technology that can take in facial expressions to kind of indicate if people are looking at the signage, or is the signage and the display effective? Are people recognizing it? Are they engaging with it? And it also can identify individuals who may be posing public risk. So, they're thinking about, trying to combine fan experience with security and safety, public assistance. All of those things is really what they're claiming the eye walkers are targeting. So, it's like literally it is a wearable billboard. It is like this thing that sits on this guy's shoulder on the video, and it has this huge screen up ahead, along with different, facial reading devices that are embedded in it. And he's walking around, in a crowd. So it's really, I don't know. For me, I was like, this is so far-fetched. This is kind of what you were thinking about with Minority Report, right? But now we're not talking about location data and aggregating things together. We're talking about actually reading people's face, determining if they're posing some type of a public threat, verifying if they're engaging in the media that's being shown. I feel like this is the future, except it won't be a person wearing it. It'll just be robots, like with these moving signs everywhere that are, trying to determine if we are good or bad, or making good decisions or bad decisions. So I don't know. When I think about this from like a privacy implications perspective, it's really scary to me. I don't know. It's a little too much in my opinion, but I could also see how something like this could be beneficial from, for crowded spaces, determining maybe levels of threat where, if you're looking down on a crowd, you may not be able to see that. But if you're walking through the crowd or moving around, you may be able to notice, things are too crowded, or, that there's, a shuffle or something going on in certain areas. I don't know. I don't know. Like, to me, it's a little out there. And I mean, maybe where the World Cup will be taking place, it will be better received. But to me, North America, I don't think this would fly. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's so I think the idea of people walking around with billboards, that's normal, that's fine, that's cool. I think the sensor aspect of it, in terms of measuring how many people are looking at it, I think that's cool in terms of measuring the engagement around the ads and the content that's there. So I'm good with that, but this idea of facial expression, and, sort of looking for people who might be risk factors and all this other stuff, that, I'm a bit wary of that. So I don't know. I mean, I think I've seen these kinds of things, like here, like walking around at Toronto Maple Leaf games here, in the past, where they, like, it's basically a backpack mounted device, right? Like, they throw it on and the screen comes up over their head and they walk around with these things. And yeah, so as a digital signage mechanism, as promoting, offers and merchandise and things like that in arenas and stadiums, I get it. I think it can work, because especially when you're in a crowd, of people, to kind of, how do you get people to kind of stop and pay attention to something? Digital signage can work in that environment. So especially if it's in the middle of the crowd, right, going through it. So I get that aspect of it, but the sort of the sensor-based reading of it, I think, might be, to me, is a bit of a stretch. So we'll see. But I do like that they can measure eyeballs and engagement. So that I'm all over.
You think that somebody will be like having that as they're selling, cotton candy and beer at the baseball game?
Yeah, potentially, right? I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I think it's got some potential there.
I mean, if we're ever in big crowds again, of course.
Yes, we will. One day. Yeah.
One day, yeah.
It can happen. Do you not think so?
I think things are different. I think, yeah, I think it will happen, but I don't think that it's going to be like it was before ever. I think people are going, I think like the the idea of big crowds being together for specific things will be thought of in a different way, and how can that be? Maybe, I don't know. I just think it'll be different. Things will go more virtual probably.
Yeah. Okay, well that's our stories for this week. That's our show. A wide range of things there. A lot of discussion about privacy and data, and I think we're going to continue that discussion next week as we have some bigger industry impact stories. I think overall to kind of talk about with what Apple and others are doing. But nonetheless, a good range of topics this week and a good guest. Thanks again to JP for coming on the show. We appreciate you listening and watching every week. This has been episode 471. And of course, we'll be back with another show. Have a great holiday for those of you who are celebrating this week in Canada and the US, and maybe other places too that I just don't know about. Yeah, enjoy it. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.